This is my 80th video about Arcane. I've made 32 long videos and 48 shorts. This show's total runtime is 6 hours and 20 minutes. The total runtime of my Arcane videos is over 10 hours. And I don't feel like I'm straining to find topics for this show. Well, there's that one bunny video. But anyway, even the shorts, there's just a ton of stuff to talk about here. I honestly feel like Arcane is just that deep, which is obviously very unusual for a story, especially a single season of a story, 9 episodes. Let me put it this way. This is a model I've been using in my head forever. A good story is a full cup, and I can put whatever I want in my cup. I can pour in some incredible world building and some great themes, and then just a little character work to fill it to the top, and that's a full cup. That's a good story. Or I can pour in some great characters, great character development, and some really memorable genre-breaking moments, and then some plot stuff, and we're full. Don't need anything more. Or I can put in fun pirate stuff and one amazing character, and then some okay other stuff, and we're good. We're full. Now, there cannot be anything bad in your cup. If there is a rotten vegetable in my milkshake, doesn't matter how good the milkshake is. So everything that's not the centerpieces has to be solid, can't be bad. Point is, the story can be very good for a variety of completely different reasons. We can have 1 or 2 incredible story elements, or we can have a really even balance of just above average everything, but baseline, what we are looking for is a full cup. Now, Arcane doesn't have any problem with filling up its cup. On the contrary, Arcane should run into a very different problem. If you overstuff your cup, it will leak, it will break, it will shatter. If you try to do too much in a story, you will ruin everything. Let's say you're a huge Lord of the Rings fan, you love the themes, love the world building, love the good versus evil setup, and you're also a huge Game of Thrones fan, and you rewrite Lord of the Rings to be as character-driven as Game of Thrones, and you're also a huge Brandon Sanderson fan, so you add in a really intricate hard magic system, and you're also a huge Star Trek fan, so you write in a side plot with aliens, and you're also a Seinfeld fan, so you put in an elf who's a struggling comedian in Rivendell, and you're a SpongeBob fan, so you have him running a Lemon Spread Krabby Patty stand. It's just not going to work. Everything will suffer. You cannot overstuff your cup, or else it will leak, it will break, it will shatter. So, somehow, Arcane has great characters, incredible plot, meaningful themes, magnificent world building, gripping emotional moments, and an insane emotional range. There are parts that make me laugh, cry, gasp, sigh, cheer, swoon, hold my breath, drop my jaw, sigh my forehead. There's groundbreaking subversion of tropes, revolutionary writing of women and sexuality, and also fantastic writing of men. Every frame of animation is a work of art. The music is phenomenal. The fight scenes are exciting. The hot characters are hot. The memes are funny. Every plot arc feels rich and complete. Every character is deep as heck. Every theme could be a PhD thesis. The dialogue feels natural and clever and fun and moving and whatever else it has to be. The nonverbal communication through expression body language is on a different level than anything I've ever seen. There's a whole system of symbolism with how the show uses colors. There's a whole system of symbolism with how the show uses fashion. There's a whole system of symbolism with how the show uses animals. There's a whole system of symbolism with how the show uses lighters and smoking. You are not supposed to be able to do this much in a single story. It doesn't make sense. I probably have like 50 videos that don't mention half the cast and half the plotline. Feels like Jinx and Vi alone could fill up a cup easy. Hextech and the Council and Viktor could fill up a cup easy. So, what is going on? How is it so deep? How is there so much? How in the world is this cup not breaking already? Okay, so I want to share my progress in answering this question at the current date, and I'm characterizing it this way because you'll see by the end, but also because this is the hardest question of them all. If I understood how to write a story like Arcane, I'd have written a story like Arcane, and I haven't. So this is a developing understanding, my current theories, and I love to hear your theories too, so leave a comment below. Okay, so here's what I got. If a story appears to be fitting more than you thought possible into its cup, and if the cup is not getting bigger, that means the contents of the cup must be using that space more efficiently. So let me point out a pattern in Arcane that fascinates me. I think a lot of us have realized this at least unconsciously, but maybe not to its full extent. Mel and Heimerdinger. These characters are both politicians, they are both on the council, but one is a scientist and one isn't. Heimerdinger and Jayce, these characters are both politicians and scientists, but one is old and one is young. Jayce and Viktor, these characters are both scientists and young, but one is from Piltover and one is from Zaun. Viktor and Singe, these characters are both scientists from Zaun, but one leaves Zaun and the other stays. Singe and Jinx, these characters are both scientists who stay in Zaun, but one is old and one is young. Jinx and Ekko, both young scientists who stay in Zaun, but one works for Silco and one doesn't. Ekko and Vi, both young people who don't work for Silco, but one is a scientist and one isn't. Vi and Vander, both non-scientist fighters, but one stopped being a fighter and one didn't. Vander and Heimerdinger, both non-fighters, but one is a poor Zaunite character and the other is a rich Piltover character. Heimerdinger and Caitlyn, both rich Piltover characters, but one is old and one is young. Caitlyn and Vi, both young characters, but one is super gay and the other is super gay. Okay, you get the point. Let me show you the same pattern in a different area. Here we have a character learning the potential of hextech, and here we have a character learning the potential of hextech, and here we have a character learning the potential of hextech, and here we have a character learning the potential of hextech, and here we have a character learning the potential of hextech, and here we have a character learning the potential of hextech. Here we have a character's complicated relationship with her father figure, and here we have a character's complicated relationship with her father figure. We have said father figure having to choose between his political goals and his daughter, and we have said father figure having to choose between his political goals and his daughter. We have a character accidentally killing her family, and we have a character accidentally killing her family. We have a character feeling betrayed by their mother, and a character feeling betrayed by their mother. We have a scene at the bridge, and 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 a scene at the bridge. A confrontation at the last drop, and a confrontation at the last drop. Families torn apart at Silco's place, and families torn apart at Silco's place. Characters arguing about using violence, and 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 characters arguing about using violence. I could go on actually almost forever. I'm calling this Arcane's great overlap technique, and I want to differentiate this from just foils and parallels. These are not just foils and parallels. Well, they are, but this is one of those situations where a quantitative increase leads to a qualitatively new category. Every story element in Arcane exists in a system that is designed specifically for the audience to draw connections to every other element within that system. We see a character in a role, we think of every other character in that role. When we see a scene with a specific conflict, we think of every other scene with that conflict. When we see a scene in a particular setting, we think of every other scene that took place in that setting. When we see a character in a situation, we think of all other characters who are in that same situation. Every single character has built-in overlap with multiple characters. Every important scene has built-in overlap with multiple important scenes. Every theme is explored by multiple characters in radically different ways. Every conflict is felt and dealt with by multiple characters in radically different ways. And these systems of parallels are designed for us to mix and match every single moving piece. If we want to explore siblings, we can do sisters or brothers and sisters. We can look at a brother-sister relationship as it forms and as it breaks. When the characters are young, when the characters are less young, and when the characters are even less young. We can look at a heterosexual romance and a homosexual romance. We can look at old young scientist mentor in Piltover Society and Zaunite Society. We can look at Piltover Zaun science study buddies with old guys and with young guys, and so on. And this is not just a platform to prompt questions and comparisons and analysis, etc. This is a vital way of conserving cup space. If you show me 10 different scenes, I gotta remember 10 different scenes. Everything that happens, all the characters and all their beats, all the different subject matters and all the themes being dealt with. But if you show me 10 different versions of the same scene, I know the scene. The events, the characters, the themes, the subject matters, etc. are all mostly the same. I just have to keep track of the differences. That's all I need to make space for in my cup. Same with characters. I just have to think of the super types: scientist, politician, fighter, parent, child, sibling, and then I can apply various categories: Piltover or Zaun, old or young, etc. And it's the same thing here with themes and subject matters: progress, loneliness, violence, time, trauma. How does Viktor deal with loneliness? How does Jayce deal with loneliness? Powder, Vi, Caitlyn, Mel, Silco, Heimerdinger. How does Heimerdinger deal with trauma? What about Ekko? What about Mel? Jayce, Powder, Vi, Silco. Passage of time: Viktor, Heimerdinger, Ekko, Vander, Silco, Vi, and so on. I can have more themes and I can say more about these themes since I have less for the audience to keep track of, less stuff to occupy brain space. Okay, so that was stage 1 of the great overlap technique. Stage 2 is something I fell headfirst into while trying to write a short about Jayce and Caitlyn. Why does the story give them a brother-sister relationship? What purpose does that serve? That was the question. And the answer, it seemed, had to do with this scene, which is another scene I never really felt like I understood. Why is this here? What is it doing? But I thought about it and I realized, okay, Jayce is on his way to make a pivotal choice of his Act 1 climax to risk it all on developing hextech. And the story adds weight to that choice by building a ramp of isolation leading up to it. Jayce is isolated by his mentor, then betrayed by his mother, then the entire scientific community basically turns their back on him, which is actually the whole city turning their back on him. Then his friend, his little sister figure, is taken away from him, and he is left completely alone before we see a turn, and then he decides to make this epic gamble. Okay, so that function seems fine, makes sense. But then I realized, wait, this also happens with Caitlyn post-time skip. She is ostracized by her peers, she watches her boss get murdered, her relationship with her family starts to deteriorate, then she's isolated by her brother figure, then her girlfriend leaves her, before we see a turn, another chance at reunion with Vi, but at the cost of a pivotal decision. Okay, so we got this mirrored function thing going on, perfect. This is gonna make a great short, except that it actually happens with every character. Heimerdinger, you have him splitting with Jayce and Viktor. That results in a split with the council, which results in his split with his city. He's alone, and then we see a turn, and he makes a choice, and that solidifies this completely new direction in life. Viktor, already mostly alone, split with Jayce, kills Skye, and we see a turn, and he makes his pivotal decision. Jinx and Vi, we have 6 different isolation ramps between the two of them. Act 1, Vi feels duty-bound to isolate to do what's right for her family. Powder has to be abandoned to work up the courage to use the hex crystals, and then very soon this happens again. Both characters lose their family, and are left completely alone. Vi, we see the turn, and then the climax, the pivotal decision. Powder, we see a different turn, and then the decision. Act 3, Vi reunites with her sister, only to realize the gap is larger than ever. Then she thinks her last childhood friend dies, and then she leaves her girlfriend, feels isolated by her and her city. Then we have a new ally briefly, but then that's over very quickly. She is completely alone. We see a turn, and then a pivotal decision. Jinx, same deal with a reunion with her sister, and then she feels betrayed by her father. We see a turn, and then the climax decision. Silco, same thing. Daughter feels betrayed and leaves. He loses his Piltover ally, then the city turns on him. We see see Sevika's loyalty is strained, and then the turn and pivotal decision are kind of mixed together here. Mel and Ekko, their arcs are shorter, but we still get a pivotal decision tied up with isolation as the stakes. Even Singe, who doesn't have an arc, this is implied, he didn't really become the mad scientist we see here until he parted ways with Heimerdinger and his daughter died. So it's almost every character. Climax decision comes at the end of an isolation ramp, with isolation as the stakes as well. But that is not where it stops either, because if you look at most of these climax decisions, what are they? What are we making decisions about? Jayce's big character moment in Act 1 is making a pivotal decision about technology and morality. And then, later in Act 3, he's making a pivotal decision about morality and also technology. He's solving a crisis created by technology. And similarly, we have Viktor, and yes, Viktor's big pivotal decision is also about morality and technology. And then we have a character like Jinx, who's making a big decision about morality and about technology. She's the one who finally weaponizes hextech. Mel's big decision is mostly about morality, but it's also about technology.
Weapons can't be unmade, and they are always used.
And in a shocking turn, Vander's big decision is mostly about morality, but also about technology. And then you have the non-scientist characters. What about them? Well, somehow technology at least makes an appearance, even if it's a minor one. Silco's decision isn't just about war, about the moral side of things. It comes back to returning the Hex Crystal too. It comes back to technology, the potential of his daughter as an inventor. Even Kate and Vi at the end, very subtly, you can argue it's not there, but their decision to act outside the morality is expressed through this added factor of using technology we don't usually see them use. So technology at least is making an appearance. But also, each of these decisions isn't just about isolation and morality and technology. It's a decision about identity as well. Heimerdinger is the founder of Piltover, and he has to decide whether to be that anymore, or whether to cast that identity off and become something completely new. Vander is the pacifist leader, and he has to decide whether to be that anymore, or whether to become Silco's monster. Mel has to take off her Medarda ring. Silco is the top chem baron, or good dad. Caitlyn, is she the enforcer, or is she the girlfriend? Jinx and Vi, we obviously see a lot of signs of this. Vi's whole life is taking care of her siblings, and then all of a sudden, this, and her life becomes something very different. Powder, we get this line.
She is not my sister!
We get this in the end.
Are we still sisters?
And obviously this whole sequence. So there are a lot of really powerful, meaningful stories about morality and technology and isolation and identity. Politics is another one we didn't even talk about. But in Arcane, it's a story about all of these, not one after another, not side by side, but all at once. Almost every moral beat of every character's arc is also a beat that involves the character's relationships to their family, to society, and involves technology to some extent, and impacts identity to the core of who the person is. And it's the same with every relationship. These characters are not just science study buddies, they are brothers, and there's a moral side to it too, and a political side. And their life missions are aligned, they're linked by who they are, by their identities. Almost exactly the same with this relationship. Silco Powder is founded on Silco's backstory, his identity, but also inextricably tied to his moral political goals, and the technological potential he sees in this girl. Same with this relationship, and here the technology is the discord in the relationship. Same with this relationship, same with this relationship. And we see similar things with just about any mix of any two characters to some degree. Every component we're talking about here is the same length as any normal arc, any normal beat, any normal scene, relationship arc, etc. It takes up just as much narrative space as it would in any normal story. It's just that everything is functioning at 500% capacity. It's 5 times the flavor. We feel all of it all at once. The emotional weight of all of our feelings about morality and the emotional weight of all of our feelings about family and isolation, politics and technology and identity. It's all overlapping. It's all layered on top of itself without taking up any extra narrative space, without crowding our cup at all. So this does two things. The first is really important, and the second one blows my mind. First, we get more people caring more about all of it. All these topics that are so meaningful, so important to our lives. We all care about our people, our societies, about science, about morality, about identity. And this also tugs at a wide range of identities that are also important to us. Younger siblings see themselves in Powder. Older siblings see themselves in Vi. Parents see themselves in the parent characters. Scientists see themselves in half the cast. We have the challenges of being poor, the challenges of being rich. We have young people with young people problems, and old people with old people problems, and gay people with gay people problems, and geniuses with genius problems, and idiots with idiot problems. This is connecting to its audience through so much with so many different vehicles. It's like I can make a story about one thing, and people invested in that thing may find meaning in my story, and that's like me as an author. I'm fishing with my little fishing rod. My hook is going to snag someone out there who cares. Or I can make a story about 30 things, and now I have 30 hooks in the water. That can snag a lot more fish, or it can snag an individual fish a lot more strongly. Second thing, let's talk about Tortoise and the Hare. There is one parallel in the story that prompts questioning. 2 animals, slow animal and fast animal. The narrative prompts one simple question. Why did the slow animal win? And the narrative itself gives us one simple answer. It tells us the moral. Slow and steady wins the race. One parallel, one explicit question, one explicit answer. This is an important story. It's a useful story, but it's not a deep story. Once the story answers its own question, no more discussion to be had. Stories that are deeper than this prompt questions, but don't give answers. This can generate depth because 10 different people will walk out of the theater with 10 different answers. But speaking of what I'm referencing with this image, we must go deeper. When we're talking questions and answers, generating discussion, the deepest kind of story in that regard doesn't even ask the question. It just presents a parallel, a contrast, a connection. It shows us where the questions are hiding, and we gotta find them. We gotta ask them ourselves. You give me one parallel, just one parallel, one of these question hiding places, and 10 different people will formulate 10 different questions, and 10 more people will give 10 more answers. So a single parallel can give 100 people 100 different ideas to talk about. Arcane has the most parallels of any story I have ever seen. We have 14 different characters. Every one of them connects to every other one of them in multiple ways. We have at least 4 different subject matters, different lenses to view the story through. 4 I listed anyway, I could list more. Each of these connects to every major plot element and every different character arc. We have settings making connections. We have scenes paralleling each other. We have all these other things: color, music, animals, lighters, fashion. I had a whole discussion with my architect friend about understanding the story through its architecture and lighting, and we haven't even gotten to combinations. I can compare 2 characters, I can compare 3 characters, I can compare all the siblings, all the parents, the Zaunite characters, the Piltover characters, the scientist characters, the fighter characters, the straight characters, the gay characters, the women, the men, the old, the young. I can compare any combinations of any of the subject matters. What is the connection the story is drawing between science and time, between morality and science, isolation and science, identity and time, morality and science, morality, isolation, time, and politics? Does that connect with these 2 scenes, or these 3 scenes, or every bridge scene, or every beat where a character encounters hextech for the first time, or every blue character, or every red character, or scenes with open structures and natural lighting, or scenes with teeth and science, liquid and gas, or Bunny and change in time and sisters, or Bunny and light and isolation and weakness, or Bunny and Bunny and Bunny and Bunny, or Bunny and Bunny and so on and so on. This, I believe, is the secret to Arcane's depth. The great overlap technique creates a unique narrative with room for like 10,000 connections, each of which generates exponentially more questions, each of which generates exponentially more answers, and all those answers and questions themselves can be discussed and compared and contrasted, and suddenly there are like 10 million people having 100 million discussions about this one story. In the AMA, Christian Link brought up an example Alex Z uses, Silco's ashtray. The animators took this simple ashtray and used it to tell its own little story. It's this attitude, this approach, extra layers of storytelling that don't take up any extra space, that don't directly ask questions, just show us where the questions lie so we can have whatever discussions we want. It's this approach applied to literally everything that creates a story we can have rich discussions about continuously for at least a year, and undoubtedly many more. And just wait for all the new connections within Season 2 and between Season 2 and Season 1. Oh my gosh, we are in for some incredible ideas. Okay, so I have to caveat 2 things here. First, I am not saying Arcane is the deepest story ever in existence. I'm saying it has a unique structure that generates enormous amounts of discussion very easily and efficiently. A disproportionate amount of discussion compared to the size of the story. And that is one type of depth. There are other types of depth, as I talked about here. There's stories that generate depth and discussion through complex answers they give. It could be purely through the writing, it could be through the subject matter. Lots and lots and lots of ways of generating depth and storytelling. Second, everything I'm saying here takes us far, but also not very far. And this is something I actually want you to help me with. Leave comments if you have any ideas about what I'm about to say. This methodology I'm describing in this video is limited because I'm talking on an extremely broad scale here. I'm talking about a structure that can contain depth and express depth, but I haven't even addressed anything on more micro levels. The type of nuance within individual scenes and moments that Arcane explores, and how it explores the ideas and emotions of those moments. Arcane is clearly in a league of its own there as well. And we can talk a lot about how individual moments are constructed, individual beats of arcs and relationships, but what I eventually want to discover is the big principles, the overall approach of how Arcane writes on various micro levels. Methodology with writing dialogue overall, with structuring scenes overall, how it approaches pacing within its scenes and within each of its episodes, methodology of characterization as it applies to specific scenes, and also like how it handles world building in relation to its source material, where they deviated, where they added, etc. So commenters, that's where you come in. Your assignment is to solve Arcane completely. I expect all your essays on my desk tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Class dismissed. Happy first birthday to Arcane, and happy first birthday to this channel as well. I want to say something in light of the last year. Not a whole long thing, just a word of inspiration to anyone out there with big, unrequited dreams, or anyone who feels stuck. I've written stories for almost as long as I can remember, and I wanted to be an author not just as a hobby, but as a career for 12 years, ever since I first saw One Piece, and I worked really hard at improving my craft. I had a set amount of hours I write per day, and I kept upping the amount. I spent about 6 months writing a short story per week just to get a lot of iteration in. I had writing groups, and I also did a ton of thinking about writing, analysis, etc. The craft part, I felt like I had an okay handle on what I was supposed to do to progress. For the career part, I felt totally miserably lost. I don't know what it was, but I'd hear these words, I'd hear these statements, and something just didn't click. Networking, no idea how to do that. Make an online platform, no idea what I was supposed to do there. If you get short stories published, that will lead to more opportunities. I got a couple publishing credits, absolutely lost as to what to do after that. Just didn't make any sense to me. I felt really stuck. And then, over the following few years, I changed my plan. I'd been traveling a lot and writing a lot about that. I had a blog vlog and I made some videos for families and friends, and I was getting some good feedback on that stuff, so I decided, okay, let me try to become a travel influencer, a travel writer, and eventually I'll try to lead that road back into the fiction writer career path. First trip was to Iceland, the Airbnb had free Netflix, I watched Arcane, made a video about that on a whim, and that got a lot of views, and I completely scrapped my old plan immediately. The whole thing I was stuck on for years, out the window in just a few days. What I learned and what I want to tell you to inspire you is that I was stuck for years, and what got me unstuck wasn't starting this path I'm on now, it was literally starting anything. It was starting a totally different path, just acting at all, just doing anything. And that ended up diverting like crazy and leading me down a totally different road, which is literally perfect. It's everything I want. I love sharing these ideas, and this fits my long-term goals just as perfectly. I absolutely will one day, hopefully soon, be using this as a platform to promote stories that I write that I'm super excited about, or, you know, Rye could just hire me as a writer, or to work in the mailroom, or as an unpaid intern. I'd take literally anything. Wizards of the Coast too, if you're out there listening. But anyway, it's fascinating to me that just acting at all is so fruitful, even if it's in a direction you're not sure about, or in a direction that you actively trash almost immediately. It just gets things in your life moving. It gets you unstuck, and it can lead you to opportunities that you never even considered. Second little inspirational thing I want to share, which maybe some of you have suspected along the way, but I think I haven't mentioned at all on this channel. I edited every video, every single short, and every single long video from my first Arcane video all the way to this one here on my phone. I have a Samsung Galaxy S10. I used a cheap, stupid little editing app that I hate. I recorded all the voiceover with my phone. I started out just using the mic on my earbuds, but I eventually bought an okay mic that I could plug into my phone. Thumbnails were the only thing I used my Chromebook for. I use an in-browser image editor. But overall, my phone got me to 75,000 subscribers. And why I did this is a combination of certain life circumstances and general stubbornness and inertia. But that's besides the point. What I want to say is, and this is something that a lot of YouTubers say, don't let anything like equipment, hardware, anything like that stop you from starting YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media thing, or art, or filmmaking, or music, or whatever. Just start making stuff. Make good stuff, stuff you're proud of, stuff that makes you happy, stuff you think people will connect with, and put it out there. Use your phone, use your $50 Chromebook, just start today if possible. That's it. Subscribe. Thank you so much for being with me on this year-long journey. It's been incredible. I am excited for year 2, season 2 of Schnee, released to the public before season 2 of Arcane. How about that? FYI, I've revamped my Patreon. I'm going to start doing monthly hangout calls with everyone from Patreon who wants in. I don't know how it will go. Maybe we'll adjust the format a little bit, but we'll see. I think it'll be fun. And also, there's just so many eager, passionate writers I've talked to. I gotta introduce you to each other. We can all start a big writing group, brainstorm together, critique stuff, and write the next Arcane, write the greatest story ever together. So check that out if you're interested. Shout out to my new high-tier patrons, Quinn, Umar, Noam, and Demon Dev. Thanks so much for the support. I realized recently that I never asked you guys to like the video because I don't know if that does anything, but like the video if you want. We'll try it. Why not? It's a new year. Hope you all enjoyed, and thanks for watching. This is